Hey gamers, this week we are giving away the complete Team Yankee starter set. If you want to be in with a chance of winning that, all you have to do is make sure you are subscribed to the channel, post a comment below, click like, and if you can help us out, share it with a friend, just to let them know that the weekend starts now. Hey gamers, and welcome to the weekend. Right, this weekend I'm joined by Lloydie, Jerry, Ben, and we're going to go on a mad tour of all things tabletop gaming. To kick off, Ben, we have a couple of little updates just to keep people in the loop. What are they?
First of all, Jerry sat down for an interview with Mike Hutchinson, who wrote the rules for A Billion Suns, which I'm sure if you've been watching Cult of Games, you've noticed that Jerry is getting very into that at the moment. Going a little bit Babylon 5 mad. But that interview is now up and available. It's a really nice deep dive into that. Get stuck into that and give it a watch. Very cool.
Did you have fun, Jerry?
I did. I had a lot of fun with Mike. Really interesting guy to talk to and to hear the plans he has. Him and he's part of that Blaster collective as well with people like Joe McCullough and Ash Barker. So
Sean Sutter and stuff. Yeah.
So they've lots of stuff coming for various games, but also he's starting. He's never really had a game site of his own, and he launched Planet Smasher Games, which is going to be sort of the place where people should go to if they want to stay abreast of what he's coming up with and plans he has in the future. And even things like he recently put solo rules up on the Billion Suns website, and I think there's a mini campaign coming in an upcoming Wargames Illustrated. So he's really going hell for leather with the Billion Suns, which is fantastic because it seems to have caught the eye of a lot of people in the community at the moment. So
yeah, so anybody that's not aware, Billion Suns is it's a space combat game. Okay. Pretty much miniatures agnostic. Mm-hmm. So it is a game and you supply the miniatures. Myself and Lloydie have been behind the scenes starting to have a little bit of a chit chat about this. Jerry has inspired us.
So it's a book and you can get it from Osprey then, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So some of the ranges, Jerry. So Jerry, you're doing Babylon 5. So you're swatting up some Babylon 5 ships for that, right? Let me talk you through some of the ranges that me and Lloydie have been having a wee peek at behind the scenes. So we have a couple of the old box sets of the Halo Fleet Battles game.
Yes, indeed.
So myself and Lloydie have been having to think about, we could do the Halo route. Okay,
definitely.
But I'm not finished there. I'm not finished at that.
But wait, there's more.
I also have a few bits and pieces from the old Firestorm Armada range from Spartan.
Delightful.
So I'm having to think about that as well, man. And I'm not finished there because I also have, now this is going way back, I also have a handful of ships from Noble Armada.
I'm aware of your work.
If you can cast your mind back to that one.
Oh, I can, very much so.
However, for me, it has come down to two options. Okay. Either I go head to head with Lloydie on the whole Halo side, which I've got to say, this finally gives us a reason to use it. It really does.
I would definitely zero in on the NSC because it's just going to be easier to paint those ships.
But with the new Halo TV series and stuff being announced by Paramount, it's a great time to jump.
Is it actually going to happen? Wow.
It is. It's now been secured to Paramount Plus.
Ooh.
The other option, though, is it's a live game, but they do the most beautiful spaceships in the world, and that's got to be the Drop Fleet Commander range. That Drop Fleet stuff is absolutely
very nice.
gorgeous.
I do keep opening my starter sets and thinking I could build these.
Yeah.
Put them away again. Back behind the curtain.
Yeah. Here, if you're looking for something to comment about, comment below. Cast your vote. If you had to choose, would you go with the Halo Fleet Battles range to take into Billion Suns, or would you go with Drop Fleet Commander? Feel free to drop in other options there as well, guys.
Or would you consider kit bashing?
Because I have to say,
like frigate, these sort of spaceships are a cool sort of project for kit bashing.
The Billion Suns Facebook group, which is massive, and because it's just launched, so people can get the rules, there's an awful lot of activity there at the moment. But I saw a fleet the other day that somebody had made entirely out of plastic card and roll plugs. You know, the plastic roll plugs you put in the wall to put screws into, and they come from massive down to tiny. So the entire fleet uses those as the bodies.
Wow.
And it's either singles, or maybe they've got two side by side, different side, and then use plastic card for fins and joints. And it looks amazing. And must have cost pennies. Literally pennies. It's genius. Genius.
Really cool.
That's probably what I would do, is just go and raid a hardware store somewhere and look for all the weird looking bolts and things.
I mean,
and then you could have like a one that's got bolts on either end for like a gravity producing bit and all.
You can really go nuts as much as your heart desires, and people are breaking out. Ready-made miniatures. People have been 3D sculpting. People have been 2D printing their stuff, and also somebody had.
What's 2D printing?
Normal printing.
Top down. Because if I said printing ships, you'd automatically default to 3D these days.
We would, yeah.
Top down views of ships they've designed. Somebody made like a stackable one out of laser cut MDF. And when you put it together, you build layer upon layer upon layer. But because they're like 1 to 9,000 scale or whatever it is, they look amazing. It looks like a fleet. So
I'll tell you what, for any of you guys at home that have fired up your 3D printers, this is an ideal opportunity for you to actually create your first models yourselves in-house. Many folk out there start by buying a 3D printer, and then they go to Thingiverse and whatever, and they just download and they print models. Where the real fun of 3D printing really starts to come in is whenever you start to actually create and print your own objects and models.
What is the 3D program that's pretty simple to use?
Tinkercad.
Blendering and Tinkercad, and also in fact
Blender's not particularly easy to use because it's starting to get into the more complex sort of side of things. But because you could build spaceships like this up out of primitives, squares, pyramids,
elements,
all that sort of stuff, you could probably jump into Tinkercad and just sort of smush a load of those objects together and come out with something that's actually quite good.
Yeah,
at the end of it.
And like I say, people have been discussing all this and so much more in that Facebook group. So it's worth just, if you're on face page, A Billion Suns, look it up, because a few people have actually gone, I'm interested in starting. And literally somebody posted that this morning as we film this. Somebody posted, I've ordered a 3D printer. I want to start sculpting. What programs do I need? So they've got a 3D printer coming and have no experience. So already people have been going, well, you can use this, you can use that, which is the only reason I know those two programs.
I believe someone's actually started a project inspired by Jerry's constant going on about A Billion Suns as well, where they've been sort of playing around with things like 40k weapons and then attaching plastic card to them and turning them into vehicles and ships and all that kind of thing. So it's very, very cool seeing the creative things you can do with this.
Spaceship building is one of the easiest and the coolest opportunities for us to do a little bit of scratch built modeling and the like. So, Billion Suns, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get a copy of it and get a game of it. We also have a Tales of the Loop article as well, Ben.
Yeah, so I've been getting into role playing quite recently, and it's been very good, especially with the whole idea of us having to play tabletop games via the internet and voice calls and stuff like Zoom and that kind of thing. So I thought I'd revisit Tales from the Loop, which we have reviewed in the past. but I went back and sort of looked at Tales from the Loop and the starter set that's available for it as well right now, because I think because it's so kind of light on bits and pieces that you need in order to play the game, it's absolutely perfect for online role playing. So if you're interested in getting into this kind of thing and role playing and maybe doing something a little bit like Stranger Things, for example, maybe go and give Tales from the Loop a go. Give this a read and then follow some of the links and stuff we put down throughout the rest of the article, because they go back and look back at some of the things we've done in the past, including, as I say, a couple of free adventures for you to play through. So some scenarios that have already been set up. And there's also something that was done by one of our community members, which is a Harry Potter version of Tales from the Loop, using the main mechanics for this and just for tweaking it for the kind of magical setting as well. So make sure to go and check that out and give it a read, because I think Tales from the Loop is one of those role-playing games that, while a lot of people know, I think it's one that it would be a really, really good intro to people that have maybe not done it before in the past. So go and check it out.
Is based in the 1980s or just has 1980s aesthetic to it?
Yeah, so it's based in the 1980s that never was, as they say. And there is also a follow-up called Things from the Flood, which is set in the 90s, where you play as teenagers as well. So
and if it's set in the 80s, is it set in any particular part of the world, or?
Yeah. There are 3 loop generators that were started in the 80s, and it was a different type of technology / power. So one in Colorado, one in Wolf Island in Sweden, and there was one somewhere in the UK, I think. And so you've got this idea that they switched these on and things started going weird.
Yes.
So they have this power source in the same way you get like steampunky type things. You have a power source that lets you do things you can't normally do. In this case, stompy robots, levitating vans, things like that. But occasionally you can also get stuff like people disappear, or people phase out of time, or dinosaurs.
Yeah,
So
Blackpool. Then it sounds like Blackpool.
Yeah,
definitely is Blackpool. I think it's located in the bar that's called Man Bar. Beside Man Bar, and this is no word of a lie, it has an adjoining nightclub called Growlers.
Nice,
So
nice.
So I reckon if it was going to be hidden in Blackpool anywhere, that would be it. That would be it.
It would make sense. But realistically, while there's the information about the 3 loop generators in the books, you can set it wherever you want.
You can do, yeah.
So you can kind of go nuts.
The actual starter set's a really good one, because it comes, like, all the basic mechanics and everything are all sort of in there, and there's only maybe 2 or 3 things that it doesn't have from the main rulebook. The main thing that the rulebook itself, the core rules, does to try to like take it to the next level is it obviously allows you to make your own kids to play the game. And it also comes with much more in-depth background on the different elements of the loops in both Sweden and America as well. And there's also, I think there's 4 mysteries in the back of it that you can play through at the same time too. So it's really good. But the starter set is a really, really good place to start, as you might imagine.
And I can vouch for the fact it's a lot of fun making your own kids.
Well, yes, very true.
Very, very true indeed.
What's this? It's on Amazon Prime Video.
Yes,
it's got its own TV series.
Yeah, there was a TV. No, that's probably the only series of that TV show we will ever see.
Yes,
because it was great, and therefore people got very confused and cancelled it. So yeah, it's a world where you just play kids, so you don't need to be. It doesn't need to be massive world-changing events. Because very rarely, as a kid, did we ever go out and do something that was massive and world-changing. Whereas, trying to find a boglin that had been lost in a forest. That was different. Did that all the time.
The main kind of thing, like the thrust behind it, is a little bit like in Stranger Things. The adults don't believe you. They've got their own things going on. Your kids, everyone's been kids, going out on their bikes and going to the park late at night and going up into tree houses and exploring woods and spying on the guy next door who you think is like a spy or something and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of world that they kind of bring to life.
You just summed your childhood up there in a few lines there, Ben.
There you go. Yeah. Very much. Maybe I did spy out the window and keep tabs on the neighbours.
They don't know this, but I am a nosy neighbour.
Well, guys, go and check it out, and you can get Ben's thoughts on the matter. Right, I'm going to jump ahead here, boys, to the most important part of the week. It is, of course, Indy of the Week. Love that bit.
Reverb and echo really helps in that place.
I know. I look forward to this so much, just so as I can do that theme tune. Right, who's our Indy of the Week this week?
Well,
I'll let Jerry take it away because he has chosen this one. Once again, Jerry's got a wonderful list that we're working our way through at the moment. So,
Weirdly, I have a list that I'm working my way through on the grounds that every month I just order stuff from somewhere new and exciting. So this one is Bronze Age Miniatures, which is a bit of a misnomer because people would look at that and go, it'll be full of Bronze Age then, won't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you sweet summer child. It is full of some absolutely terrific fantasy, sci-fi, and theoretically historical models. None of which I think are...
That sounds like my kind of historic.
Only a few of which are actually Bronze Age. So where are we at? You're looking at front page. Go up to the top, young fella Malad Maladibuk, and brings up the menus. There we are. There's the sidebar. So this is a much easier way to navigate things. I want to leave sci-fi to last because I'm like that. I want to tease you. But if you start with the Northmen, they are, as you might expect, hairy, woolly ones from Scandinavia and places north. And amongst them, you will find orky-looking things, werewolves, elves, trolls, outrageous barbarians. So the Northmen is sort of a fantasy take on it. These be very good for things like Saga, for example, Age of Magic. But they're tremendously beautiful sculpts, really nice detail on them, and they have this very noble savage feel throughout this range of Northmen. They're all fur clad and ready to go, like barbarian female dwarves. There you
That's
go.
awesome.
That is how awesome. That is how you start a show, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it is. Interestingly, this is the range that was picked by the guy who wrote the Ragnarok rules, which came out from Osprey a couple of years ago now, which kind of does that whole idea of like fantasy, Viking myth and legend and that kind of thing. This was the range that was like, if you want miniatures for this, go and check out Bronze Age.
I can understand why. Now, within this, you will hit a point where you do start finding more traditional-looking Vikings.
Yeah, because I was just looking at this going, I could get some shield maidens out of this.
You could get shield maidens. So not everything has been dialed up to 11. Some of them are perfectly fine to fit into actual historical games. You get a really nice range of just character models.
It's sculpts on these, Jerry. I really like this. Oh, yeah.
It's a delightful range. It really is. And they have that. There's a nice amount of detail and realism in them, but also just a cleanness of the design, I suppose, is how I put it. If you want to get down and dirty with just washes and away you go, you can do. Or if you just want to really lay into some interesting character models and heroes for your factions or your games, they do the same there. You're still not even off page 1 of the Northmen, are you?
No, I'm not.
You need to stop opening every image. Maybe
let's just scroll down past some of these.
The thing is, Lloyd's actually doing his shopping live on the show. So
there we go. There's cat people. I know cat people are
where
people are. The Kotar cat people. They're fans for people who play that. It's Morrowind. But it's not Morrowind.
Oh yeah, Khajiit's in Skyrim and Elder Scrolls.
That's it. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. So I know cats have sort of appeared. People have looked to get their hands on them. I know people have even asked some companies just to start sculpting cat heads. So actual anthropomorphic felines in a more human-sized scale rather than just animal sort of burrows and badgery type thing. Is unusual to see. They also have
it also gives you a perfect opportunity to go, I am live and
I'm not a cat. That is true. Now we're starting to hit some actual Northmen.
I could get some berserkers out of this.
You could get berserkers out of this.
Like I say, look at that dude there with the hammer.
Where?
Down.
Oh, this one. Oh, no.
That's immense. Oh, and then there's dragon men too.
Man, I forgot how cool these miniatures actually were.
See, I've never seen Ragnarok on the inside, so I didn't realize that he'd use these miniatures.
Yeah, one of the things they said when the book first came out was that you could use kind of like the Blood Rage stuff from the board game to kind of like kick things off. But he was like, if you want to pick up some proper old school, proper metal in many respects, miniatures, go and check out these guys.
Do you want to push on into historical?
History in the loosest sense.
In the loosest sense. But again, we do actually have some Bronze Age figures, though, because we do have some Greeks, a lot of Greeks, and a nice, not just Greeks, but
I like that Wonder Woman Greek.
Sort of Amazonian style.
Yeah, that one.
That.
Literally Wonder Woman. Yeah, again, beautiful sculpts. Blurs the line, obviously, because, historical/fantasy. There are a nice set of gladiators in here as well.
Yeah.
Trying to find decent gladiators can be tricky.
Very true, actually. Yeah.
Because I know this, because I was looking for
You don't need to keep up
of them.
You
think they're big enough?
Yeah. Well, I can see them.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got things like there's some Greeks there that look like they've been posed based on the
dude
Troy
with the
game.
32 GRK9. There's a catchy name. I think I'll call him Wolfbow.
Oh, I love that dude that you were just on. He looks amazing.
This guy.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh,
that's a Spartan.
Proper Spartan. Yeah.
He always look cool. The guy with the bow looks a bit Spartan-esque with that beard.
He does, yeah.
He should not have a bow. Bad Spartan. Bad. There's even Picts in there and some more Viking
There's
types.
Wonder Woman's mother. That's who that is. That's your woman from House of Cards.
Could be.
You can tell by the muscles in the arm. So, nice.
Well, there you go. Some shield maidens and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I like 32 Vic M10. That's just class.
He bears an uncanny resemblance to a friend of mine, Dave, as well. If his hair was black rather than that sort of gingery brown thing going on there, he would just look an awful lot like Dave.
I think he reminds me of Nakchak, who volunteers on the IT side behind the scenes for so Nakchak during a metal concert.
Yeah, that's very true. If you skip on down to lore,
ooh,
mostly because it keeps the Bronze Age of Greek theme, but this time we introduce centaurs.
Yeah,
more historically accurate stuff.
Historically accurate stuff.
Could use those for Mortal Gods Mythic. That'd be excellent. Yeah.
Yep. And there's not just centaurs. This is where the rest of the gods reside, and demigods. People who are not quite as god as your god. So we've got Hercules is in there and Perseus as well.
Freya, Frigga, Odin.
Thor with and without helm.
Yeah.
Now the Thor with helm looks not dissimilar to the Thor from Kung Fury. My pecs approve. Just looks like that.
Yes.
What age is it? It's the age of the Vikings. That explains the laser raptors then. Perfectly historically accurate. But again, beautiful. And I mean, that Perseus with the head of the Gorgon is a stunning model.
That is really
just
cool.
to paint, not even for a game. Just to have a mini, like a diorama on a 40mm base. Bam. There you go. You don't need any more than that.
Yeah.
That is lovely.
I'll be returning after the show.
Beautiful aesthetic to these. Love them.
Man, those are some. I didn't even realize they did the gods until now. That's really cool. Yeah.
Can we click into the fantasy section just to have a wee look around?
Fantasy section is all the barbarians you ever want. It's very Frazetta, Elmore-esque. So everybody's in furs with massive weapons and sometimes helmets. But I mean, you've got that slaying.
Look at 32 bar 21.
Lady,
I love that many.
Looks like the woman that helps Conan in Conan the Barbarian. I can't remember. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got that throughout, and not just the Conan-esque, but you've also got Slaying appears a couple of times.
Bar 3 looks like Marilyn Manson has joined the
but again, but that's, you look at that and you go, could be a human barbarian, could be an elf barbarian.
Yeah, could be.
Don't see enough feral elves about these days.
Very true.
Yeah. So more of that, please. Yeah. But the barbarian section is it's a hefty section. Although you will start hitting some that we've already seen because there's a bit of a catch-all. Yeah, so there's some of the centaurs and the like again. But there's some unusual headed knights. Are they just wearing helmets, or are they actually some sort of weird animal?
Reverse centaurs. Yeah.
Reverse centaurs, yeah. I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
How weird and creepy is that?
Man, those are cool.
I think it's worth pointing out that the Greek kind of centaur kind of range is 32 CNT
for centaur. Yeah.
So for short.
If you can distract yourself long enough to scroll down slightly past them, we'll start hitting the Viking Dragor and Slavic dwarves. If you want some Polish dwarves.
I like them skelly Vikings.
Oh my god. The guy with the 32 DWF13 is amazing.
This is why I don't like people seeing what I've picked before we go in. Because it's just so much more fun.
Who this guy?
Yeah, how cool is that?
I don't think you're carrying Lloyd with you on that one.
What a lovely droopy moustache.
I think the Slavic dwarves are absolutely stunning. There's just one smoking a pipe somewhere, and he just looks great because he just looks like he doesn't care. Yeah, bored. There he is. Yeah.
32 DWF2 is amazing as well. The character on the face, if you can go back to DWF2 or whatever. 32 DWF2. The guy is just looking straight at you and he's just going, "You're a dick, son." You know, you can just tell me.
But the thing that I like about these is we looked at Heresy Labs' current Kickstarter a few weeks ago for the Old World.
Yeah,
who have got a range of Kislevite, Hussar, Polish-esque fantasy miniatures, but they're all humans. And being able to then add these dwarves who would fit perfectly with them to make little war bands and stuff would, I think, be terrific.
I liked my pipe and I liked my rifle.
Oh, there's 3 pages of this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't go on forever.
Very cool. Very cool.
But if you do skip on.
It just keeps. It's just incredible. The little dioramas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially the thief creeping down there. No, I think that is just the model you're getting. I think. But they do other bits and pieces on the last page of fantasy stuff. There's creepy stuff in chests and things, but also some more Dragar and werewolves.
Yeah.
I do like me a good werewolf.
There's the dwarves, a comprehensive range of dwarves and tavern dwarves and selling dwarves and fighting dwarves.
There's a
pen-up dwarves.
Frank who? Frank Zafretta?
Frank Frazetta.
Yeah,
very much. They would be on the cover of one of those.
Hey, more skellies.
So Argonaut-esque skelly bobs. So there you go. Your Greek skeletons in Greek armor.
They're all getting ready to do the javelin.
Yeah, those would immediately be replaced with spears. Just saying, but that's cool. Just me. Yeah, page 3. You can't go without having a look at the remaining sort of undead stuff.
Oh, mate,
which is kind of almost what we were talking about.
Yeah.
On last week's XLBS. So if you missed the Sunday show, you missed out.
Love this.
And we'll have a look at the werewolves before we finish on Sci-Fi, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Lloyd will have opened every image.
Not every image. They're big images. They deserve it.
Two werewolves kung fu fighting. Huh?
There's a werepig.
There's a war boar. Wereborn.
See, I find werewolves often really, really hard for sculptors to get right, but I think they've got a lot of the proportions right for quite a few of these, which is good.
Yeah, sculptors are usually quite wary of them.
Get out of here.
Oh, poor Lloyd. His only crime was wanting to make people smile. Right, we shall move on to sci-fi.
Okay.
Because sci-fi is not exactly a small one either, but there's a lot going on. So I don't want to cut it short. So right off, you have to open all of that top row. Yeah, they have to be open. So some form of space gremlin who have, I don't know, some sort of magical powers.
Army, man!
a tiny size. Now, I'm not saying I was here looking at these with a view for Stargrave, but if there was a game called Stargrave coming in the not too distant future, it would not be said that I would not have bought some of these already and be waiting for them.
Oh man,
Total faction, man. That's just awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, he's
Cool.
wearing the Mandalorian stuff. Oh, I love it.
I think that's all in one big group. Is that a package deal?
That's
They're-
the full
they're-
set.
yeah, it's the I don't have to click multiple buttons set, which I'm all for. I'm a huge fan of not having to click multiple buttons when it comes to throwing money at people. There's a lot to be said for it. I'm just saying more. So yeah, so that's our short start to sci-fi with a little bit of fun and whimsy and goblins in space. They get a rum deal most of the time, being used as shields by big stupid. Whereas I'm fairly certain that they do not take any guff from anybody. So light side, dark side, or
the
Mando in
mercs.
face.
The middle one there has a very gremlin kind of a look to it, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, he's got the little spike hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Nice.
Then we move on to, I suppose, a more sci-fi.
Yeah.
Sci-fi. Look, a more conventional sci-fi feel, I suppose, where you have these guys in their spacesuits and their weaponry, and some of them are some of them would be nice just to use as survivors in a horror game.
Yeah.
You could see them up against the Walking Dead in hazmat suits, paint them up like hazmats rather than actual some form of environmental suit, I suppose.
Yeah.
I seen these on some other website. Someone else was selling this range, I think, and they looked really cool. I was definitely thinking about a Star Wars Legion for these, a bit of another sort of offshoot of Sand People sort of thing.
Well, the thing is, you have that whole Outer Rim area of Star Wars. You can bring anything from the Outer Rim.
Exactly.
I'm looking at some of the Star Wars pre-paints at the moment, Jerry. I had thought I'll talk a little bit about it on the XLBS this week, but I'm pretty sure that I'm also going to do the same treatment to some old AT-43 models that I have and bring them in from the Outer Rim, just into my Star Wars games. So,
definitely, it's the way to go. So here we move into what I think is the more interesting part of this fantasy. And yes, you're going, interesting. You've already shown me Goblin Jedi in space. This is
familiar.
This
Space
is John
swashbuckling.
This is John Carter from Mars. There is John Carter, and there are the residents of Basum, and they have all flavors of Martians. So that would be, well, I suppose those would be the red Martians, and then we also have the green Martians. You'll see later on the multiple armed green aliens. But if anybody's a fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs' books, I know Modiphius have released an RPG. I think they said at one stage they were going to do miniature game as well. But
they were going to.
I don't know if that's ever surfaced. Whereas here
Probably
you have
not.
them.
Here it is.
And right off the bat, going, playing Stargrave and landing on Mars and having the various animals, because these all come straight out of the various books like Warlords of Mars and like you can just do them all. And they look terrific because they have that incredibly pulp look to them. So these are the green Martians. So this allows you to play your two factions. You play your red Martians against your green Martians.
Very cool.
And these, I mean, they are massively, massively distinctive. But yeah, at the same time, I'm surprised we haven't seen more people do. As far as sci-fi goes, this is one of the oldest sci-fi
it's a classic
intellectual properties that exists, and yet rarely seen. And then Hollywood got the rights to make a movie and made it's actually not a bad movie, but they marketed it so poorly it did terribly. And that's why it died. I
enjoyed it, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good film and not a bad representation of the book. And yet, because Hollywood decided, they took of Mars away from the title. So it's not John Carter of Mars, it was just John Carter. And then people just went, what's that? Is it something like Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine? Because it was like a biopic. Because I didn't like his music.
Are the green Martians taller than the regular red Martians?
Yes.
Then? Yeah.
Yes, they are.
I would assume so. But...
A red Martian / human comes up to about the first set of arms.
Right.
There would be a head there normally rather than a torso.
Yeah. So they stand roughly a head taller.
Cool.
And miniature-wise, they do about the same. So as they say, those are actually 54 mil in size compared to the humans.
Wow.
32 mil. So for a skirmish game like Stargrave, I mean,
yes,
being able to just play out small games on the tabletop and in a big Martian city on a red planet. I think this would look amazing.
Oh, cool. Space dogs.
Yeah.
There they are. Oh, wow. That's amazing. I love those.
They are great. They are great.
Those are brilliant.
It's just a terrifically comprehensive set of sci-fi miniatures.
Well, Jerry, you did it again, my man. Right, guys, that was Bronze Age miniatures. I can imagine that there'll be a little bit of a rush on Yoda armies now.
I don't. They can rush away all they want. Mine's already being shipped.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
So, diving into the news, we're going to be looking at some board game stuff to begin with, but some miniature previews from the guys at Archon Studio, who have been putting together the sort of like first look at what we're going to be getting for Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia, the board game. So if you're interested in diving back into the retroness of He-Man, then you'll be able to pick up this game and, of course, get your hands on some awesome-looking miniatures from the guys at Archon. So far, they've shown off 4 miniatures for this. Obviously, we have seen some miniatures by them already done as mounted versions, which Jerry has unboxed and that kind of thing in the past, which is pretty cool. But so far, as you can see, we've got He-Man there. And, of course, Skeletor. Banglas. So if you're looking for a good rivalry, then, of course, you've got He-Man and Skeletor there, which is pretty awesome. Alongside those 2 main characters, we've also got some of Skeletor's minions. So we have Trapjaw, who, as far as I can remember, is the only He-Man toy I ever had. I never had anyone else, but I had Trapjaw. So there we go. And he was fun because he had a working jaw on the back of his head, which is cool. So there you go. As well as that, we've also got Beastman as well, with the whip at the ready. So if you're looking to dive into this game in the future, should be coming to Kickstarter pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that one. The miniatures, as you can see, are looking great. And if you're interested in the quality of these kind of things, then you can go back and check out the unboxings and stuff, which we have linked there and will be down below in the show notes. So you can go and see what the mounted version of He-Man and Skeletor are like on their appropriate.
Are the ones we unboxed finals, or is that? Or what?
Yep. They are special pre-edition or preview versions of the miniatures.
Yes.
That have unique rules in game. So the mounted Skeletor and mounted He-Man, I don't know if they were limited. I was thinking suspicion
they are limited, yes.
They may reappear when it hits Kickstarter, but otherwise, if you get them now, then they will work in the board game as well as being just nice mounted versions. So,
what were they? The ones that we had, were they resin or plastic or what? Were they?
It's an interesting question. It's not hard plastic. It's not HIPS plastic. I think they're more akin to resin, but there's a robustness. I think I spent some time pushing Skeletor's staff and stuff around, seeing whether or not I could break it on camera, and I didn't. So well done me. But at the same time, that it's not as brittle as full-on resin. It's not as flexible as the sort of the PVC plastic that you get for board game pieces. It sits nicely in between. You get a good level of detail on them.
They were pre-assembled as well, weren't they?
Pre-assembled when they arrived, yeah. So so I think that's the plan for the board game pieces for the Kickstarter as well. So good compromise between durability and detail.
The 2 versions that should be available at the moment over on their web store, because I think they did. Because I think He-Man and Skeletor are probably sold out by now in terms of the mounted versions. But I think they also did She-Ra and Lord Hisk or Hiss as well. So if you're interested in picking up She-Ra and a man riding a dinosaur strapped on, well, with rockets strapped to its body, then you can go and check those out as well. So,
That's the way to do it. It is the way to do it.
Anyway, moving on from He-Man and retro sci-fi, we're going to be heading to the world of Wild West Exodus and checking out another of their new Posse sets, which are available to buy this weekend. So if you're looking to go and pick these up, and you can do now. This is going to be sort of looking at the Cerulean Clade, which is one of the slightly more quirky and weird additions to an already weird and fascinating game. In this set, you get everything you need to get going with these. So you've got the Cerulean Prime, the Cerulean Nightmare, which you can see at the back there, sort of like a twisted alien figure. You've also got 2 Cerulean Vixens, one of which may be very familiar to people who know memes. And then there are also 5 Cerulean Infiltrators who, as a lot of people have said, look like sci-fi Oompa Loompas.
They're better than that. Did you ever play the game Destroy All Humans?
I did, yeah.
Aren't the little Ceruleans just that alien from Destroy All Humans?
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Killing all the cows, setting
the cows on fire with your lasers all the time, which I'm all for. And yes, Giorgio Circulus there is just great. I don't know him from memes, but I'm a big fan of ancient aliens.
This is it. Like the Wex aliens are some of the best sort of greys you'll ever find.
Yes. Yeah.
So what are they doing? Are they morphing these people into things? Or
so the Vixens are the ones that they kind of blend in with society and try and sort of, work out all the secrets of humanity and that kind of thing. So,
I wonder if they're supposed to be some sort of like a hollow suit or whatever, because you can see that sort of jigsaw pattern hexing on them as if the alien is rippling.
Yeah, it's either like a hollow suit or that's their like skin that changes. Like, either way would be cool. But,
it's fine. Again, Giorgio.
Like was it like Mystique's skin the way it does all that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it does the ripple and then somebody, then Senator.
So. Love it. You put me in the mood, man. I'm going to grab my Mars Attacks army now and burn some cows, man.
Sticking with sci-fi, we also had some news from the guys at Ravensburger who are putting together a new board game that was previewed this week. So Aliens is like a big thing at the moment. Everything's coming back to that. It's going to be on Disney Plus soon. So watch out for that. We're going to have a new fancy version of Aliens with all the graphics updated and that kind of thing.
And what does that mean, Ben? If Aliens is on Disney Plus, what does that mean for the aliens?
New version with all the graphics.
Well, it means the alien queen is now a Disney princess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's what it means.
I set you up, Ben, but Jerry knocked it down.
We're a partnership. That's why we're the Tasty Boys. That's
boys.
But anyway, Ravensburger's new board game is going to be for 1 to 5 players, called Fate of the Nostromo, set during the events of the first film. And the idea is that you're going to be playing cooperatively as the characters from the film and the crew of the Nostromo, trying to gather resources and complete certain objectives in order to survive. One of the things they've talked about already with this is that each of the different characters are going to be very unique and they play in different ways and they have their own asymmetrical powers, which is always a big bonus. And on top of that, the final sort of scenario that you have to complete is going to be 1 of 5. So there's going to be something different for you to do each time you dive in and play the game, which also sounds pretty good. As you might imagine, the alien is stalking around the ship looking to cut you into pieces. And so they've put together like an interesting sort of morale mechanic where if that ever drops to 0 because you're all terrified, and who wouldn't, there's a xenomorph about, then you can lose the game that way, which is pretty cool. They've also said that they're going to put in an additional mechanic so you can add Ash into the game, and he will throw even more spanners into the works, as you might imagine he would do. So yeah,
lovely.
They're missing
filthy hobbitses.
They're missing one of the crew though.
They are missing a couple of members of the crew. There's only some of them there. They may do some more in expansions. So it's only a couple of them that they've put together.
Because they're missing the cat as well.
You never know. Maybe there'll be a pre-order cat.
You laugh.
I thought you meant Cat from Red Dwarf. Sorry, I'm just completely off on another one.
You're laughing.
That would be amazing to add into Aliens.
Wow.
But just like Alien Queen, last time we met, I was wearing a little black number with gold sparkles and pitch trim. This is a completely different one.
Now, there's IP we need to cross-fertilize, guys.
Oh, very much so.
Arnold River versus the Alien Queen.
But you're laughing. That cat had more screen time than most of the actors.
That is true.
Yes.
Right, what's next, Ben?
So next up, we're going to get historical. And the team at Sarissa Precision have been putting together a couple of new model kits that are going to be very helpful for those who are going to be setting up tabletop games in warmer climates. So this is going to be called the Mediterranean Terrain Series, which means that it'll be available for sort of setting up tabletops in Italy during World War II, for example, and Spain and that kind of thing.
And the
But-
Mediterranean.
And the rest of the Mediterranean as well. But they've also talked about the fact that this could be very useful for those building things over in the Caribbean as well. So obviously, a lot of the people who went over to the Caribbean during that time period, sort of the 16th, 17th century, brought along their architecture in order to build all their different towns and villages and ports and that kind of thing. So it works perfectly for those people maybe playing games like Blood and Plunder and that kind of thing. The kits, I think they said there's going to be like 50 or 60 kits by the time this is all put together, which is pretty awesome. But there's a fantastic range on the way. And as you can see, it looks really nice. Very sort of stylistic buildings that are very sort of fitting to the period, which I think is really cool. But also timeless in a way, which I think is quite nice. So yeah, it'll be really fun to see what else they do beyond.
That's an odd looking Dublin.
Way down south of the border, down Dublin way.
But as well as the sort of buildings and the train kits that you've seen there, they've also started to look at expanding their World War I range. So they came out with a plane kit a couple of weeks ago. But this weekend, we're going to be seeing the introduction of this new riverboat as well. And hopefully a couple more bits and pieces for World War I as well.
Last week was the plain one, and this is the fancy one, yeah?
Yes.
You could combo these all quite nicely. If you use that with your Mediterranean set, you could do some stuff around the coast during the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah.
So
I want the boat because I want to stick Popeye on it.
I think it's ripe for kind of like pulp adventure and stuff.
Somebody's already done that in our project system, Warren.
Have they?
It's not Popeye, but there's a one of the Sarissa boats that looks like this. That's multiple levels with huge, interior. That you and left the side off and done old Tintin.
Oh, very cool.
Lovely. Yes. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could be like a wee small version of a Thunderchild as well if you want to do War of the Worlds.
That is true.
A tiny version of Thunderchild. One that would actually fit on your desktop.
Well, yeah, true.
Or on your tabletop.
Yeah. So moving on from sort of historical stuff and the 28mm kits that they're doing at Sarissa, we also got some news of a new campaign sourcebook coming out from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons. So they had a massive hit with Curse of Strahd a couple of years ago now. Everyone was really diving back into that and loving the setting. And so what they've done is they've put together a new campaign sourcebook where they've kind of reworked and tweaked a couple of things to create just the Ravenloft setting in general. So this is going to come with a bunch of new stuff in it for both Dungeon Masters and players. So on the Dungeon Master side of things, they've got rules in there for making your own version of a Dark Lord. So if you didn't want to play with your heroes going up against Strahd, you could make your own version of a Dark Lord, demonic, vampiric, or whatever you like. And you can also set up their domain and the way in which they control it. A little bit like how dens and stuff are controlled by monsters in 5th edition and that kind of thing, but on a wider scale, which is pretty cool. As well as that obviously means there's going to be new monsters. So if you want more horror-themed miniatures, miniatures and monsters, they're going to be doing that as well, which is pretty awesome. And there's also going to be a full adventure in there. So if you want to dive in and just play that straight away to get used to the world of Ravenloft, then you can do that too. On the player side of things, there's going to be a bunch of new magical items and spells and all that kind of thing, but there's also going to be some new stuff for people building stuff with backgrounds set within Ravenloft, which is good, and new subclasses for the Bard and the Warlock. So the Bard gets the College of Spirits, which makes sense with all the undead going around. And the Warlock gets the Undead Pact. So if you want to tie yourself to some kind of lich or something, that you can do that as well. Really nice to see them doing more source books and that kind of thing. Now everything's been sorted on the Dragonlance front. I'm hoping they're going to do that next. That would be cool. Now everything's sort of like died down. That would be cool. But yeah, very nice.
Here's hoping. I wonder if what was his name? Sunstrider, the gold elf vampire who ended up in Ravenloft, has got a Jader Sunstar, something like that.
You never know. They do like revisiting a lot of the old sort of classic stuff in these source books. So maybe
just because it's nice for people to run into, a nice one. There's nice, lovely elf things. It turns out it's a vicious, evil monster.
On the topic of vampire kind of stuff, Warhammer Quest.
Oh yes.
Doing that route, and I mean it is looking really, really good.
when I saw this previewed for the preview for Warhammer Quest Cursed City last week, I was like, oh dear, you've dragged me back in. God damn it!
This is the splurge session from Saturday.
Yes, this
really
is their like. Have a look at all the things. We'll go on to more news later on, but the main event was Warhammer Quest Cursed City, where they dived in and they showed off all of the new character models, all of the new villains, and a bunch of extra stuff for the game as well. So they've introduced your range of different characters, which look at different elements of the mortal realms that maybe you've not looked at previously. For example, there's no Stormcast Eternal in here, which is always a nice thing to see. So you've got Imelda Braskov there, you've got Gario Van Alten III, who a lot of people think is like a noble from the Cursed City, who's now looking for revenge. You've got Jelson Darroch there, who was one of the characters we saw when this was first previewed. He was so much of a sort of like evil witch hunter that the cult of Sigmar actually kicked him out. He was that dangerous. You've got Dagny Holdenstock, who sort of brings another one of the Duardin into the mix, looking very cool and flamboyant, bringing in a lot of the kind of classic dwarven stuff alongside some Kradron Overlord things, which is nice. So sort of like a mix between the two. You've got Quelathis the Exile, which kind of does your sort of wood elf style thing, which is really nice. I believe we looked at that in a news article not too long ago as well. And then there's a couple of sort of spellcasters. So you've got Octron Glimscry, which is looking amazing. I love the kind of skull mask thing going on. Very mysterious, very interesting. And I love the fact that the silhouettes are all very different for these different characters. So you've got some really nice sort of uniqueness amongst all of those. And then you've got Cleona Zietingale, who is another caster as well, thrown into the mix, looking fantastic. Clearly out there to hunt vampires with those stakes in a belt. And then possibly one of the coolest models from the set is Brutog Corpse Eater, who is an ogre that eats corpses. And a lot of people will probably recognize that shoulder pad is very reminiscent of some very old Warhammer going on in the background there. So,
I'm just impressed he's not fat.
Exactly, yeah. They've not gone for the big bloated guys anymore.
How long has it been since they've not done a morbidly obese ogre?
Exactly, yeah.
You think he would be the fat one if he runs around eating corpses?
I imagine there's not much meat left on the bones. That's the problem there. It's mostly bone and gristle.
Yeah. He likes he likes the jerky. That's the way that he goes. Talking of ogres, the main villain of the piece is an ogre as well, called Radukar the Wolf, who is the vampire savior of the cursed city of Ulfenkarn. But little did the nobles know that he was going to supplant himself as the ruler. And when the Necroquake happened, he rose to power and took over the city and has turned it into his own sort of vampiric cattle yard, effectively, for him to bleed the citizens dry in more ways than one, as you might imagine.
That's a fascinating take. Not just the fact that it's a vampire, but it's an ogre vampire.
Yes.
And it's an ogre vampire from somewhere grim up north.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you'll see more of that in some of the different villains that they showed off for this as well. So we have a couple more of the kind of main characters. So there's Torgilius the Chamberlain, who's been sort of previewed before as well. This is the guy who knew the secrets of how to sort of enlong the life of the vampires under Radukar, and so has been sort of like found himself into like the center circle within the court as well, and now sort of walks around the streets talking to the vermin and that kind of thing. Very nice, interesting sorcerer there. We also have Watch Captain Halgrim, who tried to side with Radukar and the saviors of Ulfenkarn when everything was going to pot, and his own men hated him so much that they tied him up and threw him into the sewer, where he promptly died, only to be risen back by Torgilius and Gorslav, who we'll see in a second, in order to serve as the head of the Ulfen Watch within the city. Looking amazing. Really cool silhouette there. Then we have Gorslav, the Gravekeeper, another miniature we've seen before, who wanders around the graveyards of the city, bringing the dead back to life to serve under Radukar, with that really fantastic-looking tomb axe spade thing going on. Very interesting.
Like an ace of spades.
Yes, yeah. Reminds me very much of Bloodborne, the video game, if anyone's played that. Very cool. Then we have a monstrous beast.
Del Toro look.
Yes, there is a Del Toro look to all of this, which is
it's
really
the
good.
eyelessness, the thinness and then eyeless.
But yeah, We then have a monster with the Varg Skier, which is kind of like the Mortal Realms sort of glam up of a Vargulf, if you remember those from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Sort of a weird, twisted beast showing off what happens when the vampires get too bestial. So really awesome to see those returning. Then we have a bunch of the kind of like rank and file stuff. So
I didn't think they could ever make an undead model worse than the ghouls. Their skulls balanced on the hair of their back. Yeah. And then they came out with these.
Now, you see, I was like, they're interesting. I don't really get those. But then I heard the backstory behind them and I was like, I can see why they've done it.
Can I guess the backstory?
Yeah,
and then you can tell me if I'm close. Yeah. So there's an undead finishing skull, and instead of balancing books on their heads to make sure they poise and walk completely upright, instead they have to balance crap on their back so they're always flipped.
Alas,
what
that
is the backstory? Because it is odd. I'm trying to work through it here. All I can think is that they've been staked to their own tombs or something.
That is exactly it. So the dead of the Cursed City obviously don't stay dead, and so the people who bury people within the Ulfen Khan will hammer the grave stones or the grave markers through the bodies in order to try and keep them underground. But obviously that hasn't worked, and they have risen up from there.
Yeah.
But I think they look okay. I mean, they're not my favorite models from the set, but I'm happy to see them do something a little bit different with zombies. Maybe it would be nice to see some people sort of tweak these and take the graves off their back and play around with them, that kind of thing. But
they're never going to kill anybody, these zombies, because zombies shuffle along.
Yeah.
Well, some zombies shuffle along and then you get speedy ones, but these ones are going to be just so slow.
Yeah, they can't raise their heads up to attack you. They come forward and then like an old blind dog trying to go out a window.
But I
they
know
just
what
keep bumping into them.
There's a distinct kind of like a marker of this lack of aerodynamicness. They got the same dude that made them Lumineth with the big weird helmets that aren't aerodynamic.
Just you wait, Warren.
They got hit to these. So
I mean,
although
based on the way they were buried, then they were buried lengthwise, and then the headstone was not put at the head of the grave, but put in the middle, sideways on, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see that and see the length of their coffin.
They don't bury them the way we do, Jerry.
No, they don't.
They could be fun if you built a table that was deep and you could literally prop them in.
Just have the headstones.
When you're wandering through, just pop them out of their graves.
Very cool.
I'm a zombie.
That would work.
That one off.
Beyond the Dead Walker zombies, as they're called, we also have the Ulfenvoch, who are the people that now serve under Watch Captain Halgrim. Everyone was basically like, "Oh my God, has Lloyd seen these? These will be amazing."
Lloyd has seen these, and Lloyd is amazed by these. Lloyd does like these.
These are Viking rust skeletons.
Yes, that's what they basically kind of are. I love the easterny look to them. I love the fact there isn't a bat wing in sight.
Mm-hmm.
Shields are all right. They're a little elaborate for my liking, but overall, I do dig these a lot.
None of them have a gravestone stapled to the back of their face.
True.
That's it. Not one.
It just goes to show they can do it. I mean, those look superb. That set with the captain are beautiful. Absolutely beautiful miniatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, the captain's way up here. I'm going to go get him again because they kind of all sit together as a group then. Like, if they did this in a separate box set, I would have had this ordered.
They might do in the future. They did kind of a couple of smaller box sets when Blackstone Fortress had come out. So maybe check out that. Sticking with
sort of that guy there. Look, he's even got the mask. Oh,
he has, yeah. I like the really kind of like lackadaisical standard bearer who's like, "Hey guys,
are you ready, Steve?"
Yeah. We also have.
But I wouldn't paint them so uniform. I'd do my whole thing where I mix them all up again. And I wonder,
that would work,
is it too much to try and draw a little stripe along each bit of ripped cloth? Does it look like?
Yes, it is too much work.
Rather you than me.
Work on it.
Rather you than me, I think.
I'd be tempted to do that just as leather, because it'd be very easy to do as worn leather that started to rot away.
Oh, it's just like
we even have a tutorial all about that. In terms of the rest of the monsters, so we've got the Viakos Bloodborne, who are some of the vampires that have been unleashed by Radukar on the city to go and hunt down people to bring back to the court for him to drain their blood from. Really like these again. I mean, very foot on rock and Hand on Rock and Hang Off Rock. But, looking good will sort of fit into the theme of the Cursed City, which would be really nice.
Yeah.
Then we have more ogres. So if you thought that ogres could be vampires, but nothing else, how about big zombie ghoul ogres called the Virkos Bloodborne, which are looking pretty awesome as well. The elite guard of Radukar, who takes control of the city. So yeah, very nice. And then to finish things off, you couldn't do things...
Rat's got a key.
Yeah. You couldn't do things set within the sort of like an undead city without the addition of bat swarms and corpse rats. So if you're looking for the kind of initial enemies you'll be facing, they've got those sorted as well.
They look a bit like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, because there was an episode where Mr. Burns became Fruit Batman.
Yeah.
And he had his big cape with tiny little spindly little legs and a big nose.
Not seen that, but yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Incoming COVID carriers.
So yeah, you got your sort of like standard elements there, which is pretty cool. All this is going to come as part of a larger boxed game, as you might imagine, for Warhammer Quest, which is touted to be hours and hours and hours and hours and hours long, which is always nice.
And that's just putting the minis together.
And that's just putting the minis together and painting them, yes. I did paint eventually everything for Silver Tower, so I'm kind of hoping I've got the chutzpah to go through and paint everything for this, because they actually seem like they will paint up quite quickly in the long run, especially with a lot of the contrast paints that they've got at the moment as well.
Is this a board game then?
Of that split with Lloydie.
Yes,
right?
it's a board game, yes.
To give him those Viking Russ skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot else in it that's as good as the Viking Russ. So he's gonna have to get Justin to do it. He's only one gum full enough. That way, it's like.
Have we seen? Because like the cover art, there's a picture of the box or something floating around. It's not in this post, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, if you click on one of the one of the links up above, will take you to the Warhammer community page. It should do.
And this, unlike Silver Tower in the past, this is set up to be more like Blackstone Fortress in that you have scenarios. The scenarios are in envelopes. You don't know what's going on until you get to the point where it tells you to open the envelope. So it's more of a narrative playthrough. It's more like Warhammer Quest, unlike Warhammer Quest. Silver Tower.
I'm getting into other things.
Like Warhammer Quest.
It is towards the bottom of that article, but if anyone wants to see all the different components, they can go and check it out. But there's like tiles and books and all kinds of things like that. In addition to what they've done as part of the actual Warhammer Quest Cursed City game, they're also going to be doing a book alongside it by C.L. Werner, who did some amazing stories back in the Warhammer, the old world. He did Matthias Thulman, which is a fantastic story, and he's done some other bits and pieces as well for like the Skaven and all sorts, and Bruno the Bounty Hunter as well. A fantastic story there. He knows his dark fantasy, and if he's writing a story for this, it's going to be really awesome. It also comes with a special character card in the back of the book, I believe, which will introduce another character for you to play as. So there's 8 in the game already, but you can have another one.
What's next?
There's even more Age of Sigmar, because as Lloyd was saying, it was a splurge. And as I say, Warren, you thought the Lumineth Realm Lords were gone.
Surely
oh,
they're
no.
not.
Oh, no.
Not more. Really?
There are more.
This time around, they've got the kangaroo lizards wearing cow hats, but they're mounted on the minotaurs with mountains on their shoulders as some sort of cav-on-cav action.
Okay, so last time it was kangaroos. Where have they taken?
This is... so we've seen the character model for this before, but this is the non-special character version of that, which is just a sort of standard Huracan Spirit of the Wind, as you can see there.
Oh, that's one of the kangaroos now wearing a horny helmet.
Basically, yes. And yes, impossible to put in a carry case, but there we go.
Yes.
But we'll spin through these, because otherwise we will
build that into an ornamental hat and just wear it down to the game club.
You could do that.
The way it narrows at the bottom, you could probably put it on one of the mountain minotaurs. Put it on its head.
Yeah.
Away you go.
Do that.
Okay. So
we also got
through these.
Yeah, so we got a couple of new special characters. So there's Elania and Elithor, which kind of is very much a callback to Lord of the Rings and Elladan and Elrohir.
Is that one mini?
That is one mini. So it's one mini balanced on the back of another miniature that fight together as one. So yes. which I'm sure will make some people very annoyed and other people very happy. But
Station.
It's like Skag the Falconer and
yes.
And is that oil shot itself?
No, not quite.
What is going on there?
It's tied. It's tied on.
Oh, it's tied on. All right. Okay. Sorry, I thought it was. Yeah.
I quite liked the fact that they'd done the sword pose, which is very reminiscent of the
Eltharion
model.
When he was blinded in the head of the Tower of Hoth.
Oh, he's the elf with the mask or with the
blindfold.
Yeah.
Who has been brought back to life in the Lumineth Realm Lord's army, but as the kind of hollow armor version of himself. So this is a callback to that, though, which is pretty nice.
Okay.
You've also got a bunch of additional characters. So there's the Huracan Wind Mage, so a traditional-looking mage. Again, as you say, drawing on that kind of Asian aesthetic and sort of style, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Oh, they really
fancy
going on it now.
Yeah, that helmet, though. Come on.
It doesn't get any better.
Right.
So we've also got things like the Skinari Caligrave, which is...
Oh, God's sake. Oh, come on. Look at this.
we had seen him. Had we seen him before? In a box set?
What's he wearing on his feet?
He's got the little... Their specific little shoes that they would wear when they were like on... If they didn't want to step on puddles.
Yeah.
Essentially. So they're like little mini plinths. Stilts, yeah.
But they're based on real shoes.
We'll call them stiltettos.
They are based on real shoes. Yeah. You've also got the Skinari Lawseeker, which is the new model that's been added into the mix, which is the next one along, which is a little bit more of a more measured model, but looks cool. And kind of takes things back to sort of Elves of Yore in the style of armor and the way that it's sort of like the mage that's also a good swordsman as well, which is pretty cool.
Here's the thing. If that was the goofiest that they went with this army, I'd be 100% on board. Okay, I just about get away with that. That as the goofiest, but considering that is probably now the most normal thing in the army, and that's your starting point. Like this is, I don't get it. Do you know what? It doesn't matter whether I get it. I'm sure there are other folk out there that are utterly drawn to this.
You'd be surprised the amount of people that I see in the comments for these that are like, I can't believe how amazingly wacky these are. I love them. So, different strokes for different folks, as they say.
The Marmite faction.
Yeah. We also have a couple more. There's still more. So there's another character on the way called Lyrior Ulthrale, which is the new leader character.
Okay, that I like. That's okay.
Kind of reminds me of the kind of classic style of the Phoenix King and stuff from back in the day, which is cool.
I do like that. I think that's a damn fine miniature, and it's riding a creature that is not a kangaroo. So
it's the four-legged version.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a couple of units and an additional sort of like unit attachment as well. So you've got the Venari Blade Lords, which will be very fitting for those people who loved the old High Elves and the Sword Masters of Hoth. They're now back in this form as the Venari Blade Lords, as you can see there. Kind of got the back banners going on, sort of samurai-esque, which is pretty nice to see. Very cool. Then, if you thought those banners were too small, how about the Venari Banner Blade, who has a massive, huge standard that he walks into combat with, or she walks into combat with? This, just so you're aware, found out in the lore, because I'm on it. That banner ain't made of fabric. That's made of pure light woven together into the image that you see there. So it might look heavy, but it's light as a feather. There you go.
That makes sense. It reminds me of the very early Golden Demons, where people were allowed to enter. You could enter a 5-man unit, but they had to be based on a regular size thing, and all you could do was add banners. And over the course of 4 or 5 years, the banners got bigger and bigger. I've got White Dwarves where there were like half-sized A4 banners, like A5-sized banners stuck on the models. So they had these massive artwork and then like tiny miniatures below them. Feels like that.
We also then got a final piece of terrain, which is going to be an option for the Lumineth to use, which is called the Shrine Luminor, which will allow them to sort of sap power from it in order to use in the games. Kind of brings together all the different elements and stuff that they talk about within the Lumineth. But yeah, an interesting little sort of thing to cap it all off for the Lumineth there. There is some more for Age of Sigmar, but it won't take us long to go through it because there's not too many. Okay, so
Kung Fu Kangaroos are finished, yes?
They're gone.
They can't hurt you anymore.
We also have some more stuff that was kind of like dropped out because they're kind of building on the Undead faction a little bit more and playing around with it. You've got the Coolgast Cruciator, which is sort of like a tormentor within your Undead forces. And then the next model is a total glam up, which is a phrase I'm going to start using a lot more of an old Warhammer model. So this is the White King on horse with full-on Batwing helmet, as you can see there. Again, building on a classic miniature from the Citadel range, sort of like using it now for the Mortal Realms. But this leads us, and a lot of people, to think that there's going to be a full army based around this idea and this motif of the vampires once more. So obviously we've had the Flesh Eater Courts, and we've had the kind of more spirit-style version of it, and we've had the Ossiarch Bone Reapers as well. We're hoping we're going to see a lot more of this kind of old school style, sort of skeletons, zombies, vampires, that kind of thing popping back up as their own army within the world of Age of Sigmar as well, which would be nice to see.
Classic look, never goes out of fashion. That's really nice.
It would be cool if they could do the skellies more like the City Guard ones, but then give you a kit that then can stick a load of bat wings and stuff to them if you like that aesthetic more.
It's hard plastic. It's easier to file the bat wings off, Lloyd.
It's pain in the butt. It's pain in the butt.
Just break out Dremel.
Because as well as bat wings, you've got flipping skulls everywhere. Look at that, skulls and stuff.
Oh, no,
it wouldn't be Warhammer without skulls. So,
but the City Guard is cool.
We also have a couple more previews. One of them we've seen before, but the first one we haven't. So the first is a new Stormcast Eternal hero. So this is Gardas Steel Soul, who is the main character in a lot of the different novels that have come out quite recently. And he's had quite the leading role within the kind of unfolding narrative of the Mortal Realms. He's fought for Sigmar. He's fought for Alariel. He's battled his way through an entire intoxicated grove of Nurgle and sort of come out the other side as well. So a pretty badass sort of lord to use in your armies. Looks pretty cool doing the whole sort of Superman landing thing. Which is always
as Deadpool told us, superhero landing.
Superhero landing. But yeah, very awesome there. And then finally, we got to see all of Headcracker's Mad Mob, which are coming out for Warhammer Underworld Diachasm as well. So we'd seen 2 or 3 of the models, I think, there. We now saw the sort of main leader as well.
I think the Headcrackers are cracking.
They are awesome. They're really cool.
The tiki mask is an unusual, it's very froggy looking, froggy come orky. Tiki mask for the shaman.
That's cool.
But yeah, that caps everything off for Age of Sigmar. It should be noted, I didn't include it in here, but they also are saying that they're going to be doing a kind of like standalone 2-player starter set for Warhammer Underworlds. So if you can't get your head around the idea of like, so it was Shadespire, then it was this, then it was Diachasm, blah, 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 and being like confused by all that, there'll just be one starter set that you can pick up, which will come with new warbands and everything just to get you going in it, which is nice to see. On the 40k side of things, coming out for pre-order this weekend, there's more. So, Kill Team Pariah Nexus, which was previewed not long ago in another big info dump from Games Workshop, is going to be available to pre-order this weekend from store.ontabletop.com.
Yeah.
And
this is my Superman swish. Swish!
It means peace. So this is going to contain a bunch of new miniatures and terrain and more for you to get started in Kill Team once again. You're going to get a new Space Marine Captain and the Chronomancer as new characters that haven't been seen before. There's also going to be new kits for the heavy intercessors and the flayed ones. Again, we've kind of gone through this before in previous previews when they've shown up as well. But some of the cool things about this kit, obviously it comes with all the rules for you to just dive in and start playing Kill Team, which is an awesome way to play 40k anyway. But they've got the mat, and they've also got these really nice Necron terrain pieces as well. So if you're interested in kind of like building up a really nice Tomb World board, that's going to be something to go and dive in and pick up.
Which one? We're talking about this set here.
Yeah, so if you see that, you can all those terrain bits come in that set.
The one with the OTT logo in the middle of it.
Are any of these unique to this box set, or can you get them as separates?
So all of the miniatures you see there are unique to this at the moment and will be available separately later on. So,
sweet.
So if people would want to pick this up anyway, because it has heavy intercessors and flayed ones and everything in it as well. In addition to the main Kill Team Pariah Nexus box set, we got a little bit of a glimpse of what else they're doing for this as well. They're also going to be doing these new kill zone terrain sets. So a little bit like the kind of combat zones that we saw them do in the past for Warhammer 40,000 back in 8th edition, I want to say. So there's going to be 3 of these for you to pick up, which come with specific rules and scenarios and that kind of thing for playing in what they call hazardous regions. So you're going to have one for Sector Frontier, Mechanicus, and Munitorum if you want to dive in, get some terrain, get a mat, and have everything basically set up to sort of dive in and start playing games.
I like this one. It's like Robot Wars.
Yeah. That's exactly what they were thinking when they put this together. In addition to all the new Kill Team stuff, they're also going to be re-releasing some of the stuff from the Indomitus box set at the very beginning of 9th edition. So if you missed out on picking up the Indomitus set, or you just don't really want to pick up everything else that comes with it, you can now pick up 2 new sets which give you all of the unique models from that. So you've got the Honored of the Chapter for the Space Marines, which come with all the new characters there. And then you've also got the Royal Court for the Necrons, which offers up all the different characters that they included on that one as well. So yeah, if you missed out on those, make sure to go and check those out and pick them up for your Space Marine and Necron armies. And again, goes back to what we've been saying for a lot of the stuff that's been sort of previewed for Games Workshop. If it appears in one of the big box sets, it's probably going to appear separately at some point later on down the line. So you don't have to rush in and get it now. You can sort of wait if you need to as well. So yeah.
Right. That's your lot for news.
Oh dear, man.
Let's see what's going on in the 3D printing world. In the world of 3D printing, Ben, what have you picked out for us this week?
So the Patreon, and by extension, my mini factory that I've picked out for this week is from Bombshell Miniatures.
Right.
So Bombshell will actually probably be a familiar company to a lot of us who've looked at their sort of pulpy sci-fi stuff in the past. But sort of over the last couple of months and sort of year or so, they've been doing what a lot of companies been doing and looking to Patreon in order to fund a bunch of 3D printable stuff that you can either use for whatever you want, be it role-playing games, that kind of thing. But also a lot of people have picked these up and used them for things like 7TV by Crooked Dice. Mm-hmm. In fact, Crooked Dice themselves have actually bought a lot of these miniatures and used them within their range for a lot of the new stuff they've been doing, which is pretty cool. Yeah. The Patreon that you're seeing here, they have actually stopped taking a lot of subscriptions recently because there's been so much work that they've been doing. They've been sort of like, we need to take the pedal off the gas a little bit. Yeah. But some of their most recent stuff has actually been these really awesome superheroes. So if you like the idea of getting some sort of like alternative She-Hulks and that kind of things, they've been doing some really nice superhero stuff, as you can see there, that Lloyd's been looking through. But the majority of what they do kind of goes into that slightly more traditional pulp angle of things. Mm-hmm. So it's all sort of like scientists doing weird stuff behind the scenes, monsters and aliens, and sort of spies and detectives and Cthulhu, as you can see here with some of the stuff they've been doing.
If you can't get on the Patreon, is this stuff available over here on this other link?
Yes. So the second link is to their My Mini Factory, where they've been doing anything that's got through all of the different stages of production is then available as part of their collection, as you can see here on My Mini Factory. So
there's Rocket Man.
There's the Phantom as well, who I think is possibly one of the most obscure superheroes, special agents, I think a lot of people will have ever seen.
See, you say that because you're young.
But I actually remembered him. Like, I watched his show at some point.
Yeah, he had a show. He actually had a Avengers-like group show as well as a cartoon. Yeah. But he was also a newspaper comic strip in the 80s. In fact, I think in the Daily Mirror, or possibly one of the Sunday Mirror. But every week you would get a little Phantom fighting the good fight somewhere in the world. There we also have Green Hornet. I don't recognize Doc Vulcan. He's too thin to be Doc Savage.
Because I remember, weirdly enough, talking about toys again this episode, Rocketeer. I had a toy of the Phantom and the Jaguar that he had with him. Was it a Panther? I can't remember. The Panther. And I had the toys and stuff, and I was like, "Dad, what is this?" And he was like, well, you need to watch some Phantom, my boy. And so that's what we did. But yeah,
Rocketeer was amazing. running towards the cliff edge, and as he's running towards the cliff edge, he's turning the dials on his chest, fire up the rocket pack. Do you know, as a kid, I wanted to be that. I wanted a rocket pack. Now, as an adult, I'd need a hell of a rocket pack.
You need SpaceX,
and I would need dials with extra large letters on it to actually read what I'm turning it to. But yeah, these are great.
Like as we were saying previous, when we were looking at the Indie of the Week, that kind of like pulpy, as I found out, it's called Swords and Planets style of pulp and sci-fi. The guys at Bombshell, or Patrick Keith, does all this kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of style of space exploration and that kind of thing, Victorians on the Moon, as a lot of people call it, or Victorians on Mars.
There's Meg's daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Then they've done all sorts of different characters like this, which are absolutely perfect for that kind of setting.
That is the robot. What is that?
I can't remember the name of it. It's from Metropolis.
Metropolis.
Yes,
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like one of the first sort of droid-looking things on cinema.
Yeah. And the great thing about all of this kind of stuff, again, it could be used for 7TV, but this is the perfect kind of thing for you to introduce into your games of Stargrave, for example, as well. As we were talking to. And as you can see, it's not just a lot of sci-fi and pulp things. They also do a little bit of fantasy as well. I mean, who wouldn't want a little tiny adorable corgi?
Corgi with panniers on the back for tools,
carrying all your tools and things. There's the Iron Golem there if you want to go down the route of sort of like a style of a Warforge. There is also an actual Warforge for the Arcane Construct, which is the next one as well.
Sweet,
that is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. There you go, classic Warforge. As if if you're playing a bit of Eberron, that's the kind of character they've gone for there, which is pretty awesome. They kind of like think, oh, a cool concept. Let's go with that. Let's do pulp this month. Let's do sci-fi. Let's do Swords and Planets. Let's do whatever. They even got like a Blade Runner set as well. So if you click on the Cyber Crew, which is that one there, you've got sort of like your Deckard and stuff for that as well. So if you're looking to do something a little bit more cyberpunk, then you've got those options as well. Again, these miniatures are available as the 3D prints, as you can see here, so you can download the files and get them printed off at home. But I believe Crooked Dice have actually gone and sort of taken the license as part of a store license to kind of produce these for people as well in resin and that kind of thing. So
real ones, awesome,
real ones, not ephemeral ones.
No, digital ones and zeros. I get confused.
But yeah, a really nice selection of different things they've been doing for these. Again, these police are perfect for Stargrave that's coming up in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Use them as the kind of law enforcement as they're going around the tabletop, sort of cleaning things up and that kind of thing. And one of the things I really like about the Bombshell stuff as a whole is it's just full of character. Like we talk about this a lot with a lot of sculptors nowadays. Like Alex Huntley does the same kind of thing with Warplock. Everything's just full of character and it's all very interesting, very unique, and that kind of thing as well. Which means that if you in most cases, when you pick up a bunch of this stuff and you add it to your collection and bring it to the tabletop, the people that you're playing with probably aren't going to have most of this stuff.
Yes.
So if you want to have like really cool monsters, really cool characters as part of your skirmish warband, they won't have them and you will, and it'll look awesome. So,
I mean, how many people out there have a creature from the Black Lagoon?
Exactly. Yeah.
Swimming.
Yeah. That's what I think Maria from Stingray actually looks like if she when the glasses come off and it's like, oh God, no.
Like this.
You are a fish person.
Aquamarina. Right.
So, yeah.
There's your lot, guys. Head on over and check out Bombshell Minis over at myminifactory.com. Right. Kickstarters. Let's finally finish out the show, Ben. What have we got this week?
Cool. Yeah. So these are two Kickstarters that I'm going to introduce, and then let Jerry go for it because he has both played this game and had a massive interview about the other one. So the first of these is from PSC Games, who have expanded on their roll and write game called Roman Roll, with the Gladiator expansion is their newest Kickstarter. Just sort of like a quick fire thing. It's for 1 to 4 players, so you can play it solo if you like. Plays in around 90 minutes, and it's a classic roll and write game. God, it's a roll and write game called Roman Roll Jesus.
Not to be confused with Roland Riveron.
Exactly. Where you're rebuilding Rome after a great fire and trying to become one of the greats within the city. But yeah, I'll let Jerry talk about it, because we actually had a Let's Play for this out this week.
Yeah, we had a Let's Play for the main game. And so like Benjamin was saying there, it's a 1 to 4 player, because there is a solo deck that is Seneca, and that's been around for a while. It's asymmetric. What they've done with the gladiatorial expansion is add a new region that people can conquer in Britannia. So you're kind of being a bit Caesar-esque, and they've also introduced a new thing that you can collect in the form of iron. So up until now, you've had fish, jewelry, wood, that sort of thing, but you've now got iron in. You've got smelting. You can make new factories and buildings on the tabletop, which is one way of scoring. But a more interesting way is you can build yourself a Colosseum. It doesn't have to be a big Colosseum. You can build little small ones. You can have multiples. But once you've got a Colosseum up and running, you can have gladiatorial colleges, and you can therefore fight gladiatorial games. And they have a very interesting mechanic in this, in that you play out your gladiatorial games in the form of noughts and crosses, or tic-tac-toe for the Americans. And whenever you're putting your little nought or cross, you can change. So you don't have to, just because your opponent's put down 2 noughts in a row and you finally got a chance to put one on the board, you don't have to go for a cross. You can go for a nought to score. And in doing so, you'll gain more ways of winning, because there are multiple facets to victory, and it's not just all about building the biggest temples, or getting the most land, or having the most money, or having the most influence. All of this feeds into how you win. And when you're playing the gladiatorial games, if it ends in a stalemate, like most games of noughts and crosses will, then there is when the little board is full, you then tally up the score, and then you get the revenue generated, and you get the materials generated, and then you get the points for winning those games, because people don't care who wins as long as somebody fights. Then you wipe out the board, and then you go again. So you can have 2 boards playing simultaneously, and depending on what's in there, you may want to go for the left or right hand board when you get the option to put a game down to have a gladiatorial fight. So you might be flipping back and forth between them. So it's not just one arena being fought in, but there's only, I think there's a limit of 5 gladiatorial games played to completion before you're finished with it. So it adds a whole new facet to the way you play, and it also adds a new player in the form of a retired gladiator. So up until now, you've been playing various senators, and each of the senators have different bonuses because it's all asymmetric. So you may have somebody who's got a lot of influence. You may have somebody who's very good at military and roads or trading. Now you've got a gladiator, and obviously he feeds in more to bonuses for the gladiatorial style of combat and that side of the game, as well as stuff to do with the advisors and Britannia. So it's a 5th different way of playing out the game, or 5th different player on the tabletop, which changes exactly how your win conditions come in. Because if you're playing against your opponent and they need to do something clever, like spend a lot of gold and time and effort or denarii on jewelry, and they're going to score big for that, then don't fight them at their game. You play the game based on what you are strong at. And so it has this really unique dice and draft mechanic, which is very easy to get into, and everybody knows how to play noughts and crosses. So the addition of an additional region to it and an additional mini game built in is not onerous on you to try and learn. You're not having to learn a whole wealth of new stuff. You're just expanding on what you already have, and then having this sort of interesting little play at the end as well, where you're going, okay, well, I'm gonna play some gladiatorial games. I'm gonna throw bread and circuses at the populace out there, and they will love me for it. So a fascinating way that they've been going with it.
And it's an interesting roll and write in many regards, because a lot of them are kind of very light experiences. And while, I mean, Roman Roll isn't like the most in-depth game, but there's a lot more strategy built into it than a normal roll and write game, which is quite nice to see. So it's a little bit more of a step up from something like your Railroad Inks and that kind of thing. But a really interesting one to go and check out from the guys at PSC.
Well, guys, PSC Games, Roman Roll Gladiator expansion, 17 days left on that. So if you fancy adding that to your collection, head on over and get it. Right. What's next?
So next up, we have Savage Frontier from the folks at Footsore Miniatures and Games. So this, at its sort of basic level, is them looking to fund a new set of 28mm scale miniatures sculpted by Stavros Zouliatis. I think I got it right. Yeah.
I managed.
For use during the French and Indian War. They are all sort of designed in the kind of scale and proportions that will be perfect for use in things like musket and tomahawks and sharp practice. But the guys there are also working on their own rule set based within the period. A little bit like we've seen with things like Baron Wars and that kind
You had a chat with them last week, Jerry, wasn't it? Because there's a video here. So if you're interested, you can go check that out for some more detail as well.
Yeah. But essentially what Tim wanted to do with this is it's an interesting little part of the French Indian Wars in that it's specifically aimed at the battle on snowshoes. So there were a couple of important battles where the terrain was as hostile as the opponent. They were fighting in bitterly cold weather, which is hence Savage Frontier, because it's not the people that you have to be as worried about. It's the actual elements that you're fighting in are just as bad. So they've done. It's the first time I've seen any 28mm in this style. They're wrapped up for the winter. They don't come on bases. They don't come with tabs either. They have the option of being mountable on either just the ground, or they will all come with snowshoes.
So when you say tabs, no puddles is what you mean? There's no puddles on the bases, or what do you mean there's?
There's no puddles, no tabs, no for slotted bases, none of that. They are virginal, so that you can choose to mount them on snowshoes, or if you don't want to use them for that style of game, then you've got some heavy winter weather clothing fellas for your French Indian Wars anyway, and they're doing the three fractions. They're doing your Native Americans, the British / colonialist, and then the French troops, to give you this mixture of models that you can then go into the northern parts of New France and start kicking backside. And they've been blasting away. They had the core sets for all three ranges worked on and developed in advance. There are some stretch goals in here, but what they're looking to do is use this as a jumping off point. So the profits beyond the stretch goals are going to be used to fund more of the range in the future. So they've taken sort of the idea that they wanted the core range there already, but then they can use Kickstarter to hopefully expand far beyond the actual Kickstarter campaign to give people this idea. Now, Tim did say it is historical fantasy to a certain extent. There are things in there that are anachronistic. So there's a really nice resin boat, which people immediately jumped on and went, that's 20 or 30 years out. It should not be that type of boat. And he went, I don't care. I like that boat. So for heavily dyed-in-the-wool historians, they may not like it. The figure-wise, your figures are spot on for the Battle of Snowshoes, but occasionally you will run into something like that that's just slightly out, still perfectly valid and does look terrific. And I think the idea of taking those particular battles in the harsh northern winter and actually having the terrain and the elements be a imposing part of the games, because things like Rogers Rangers went up, up through rivers and did these raids in the back of beyond, and then ran into difficulties, as did the French. And when you've gone in and burnt a whole town or village, and then you're trying to escape, they lost as many people on the way in and out as they did to actual battle and fighting, because they were vicious weather.
What were they doing up there? Were they fur trapping or what was it?
No, murdering each other. This was a
war.
This was specifically this battle, it was part of the French and Indian Wars, which was Britain against France. And this battle shaped Europe and the Americas up until today. Because if France had won, France held Canada, south of North America, so Louisiana Purchase, all of that down around the coast. And they owned a big chunk of land in between where Britain had its colonies originally on the East Coast, and then a little bit around the Hudson, like Chicago area. If France had won, they would have held all of that. So America would be French speaking now and not speaking any other language, just like France does, where they refuse to speak English. So it would have changed that massively. Out of the back of this, England took all of that land. France got kicked to the curb. They were left with very little, which meant Spain then came in, which is why you had the Spanish-Mexican Wars later on. It bankrupted France. It bankrupted Britain, which is why you had the American Revolution and the French Revolution and then the Napoleonic Wars. Everything comes from this. This battle was monumental.
Wow.
And so the fact that they've gone, yes, this is great, and then look at this little part of those battles in there, just get stuck in and set everybody on fire, and the ones who aren't on fire get frostbite. Fantastic. Scalp the lot of them, go on your way. So yeah, and you might even see people appear. I don't know if we're going to see people like Washington, but Washington got his first command in the French and Indian Wars.
Isn't it the birth of the Rangers as a portion of the US military? Well, the US military
there was a Ranger faction before Rogers Rangers, and some of the officers from that, which I think was Gorman, ended up being in Rogers Rangers. But then, yes, as that sort of skirmishing green jackety force, they developed much more in the French and Indian War, and then obviously we get the likes of the riflemen and that sort of thing later on. So yeah, it's incredibly influential, and just prior to the Revolutionary War. So this is 1750s, but some of them would work for the earlier conflicts in the earlier 1700s and also into the War of Independence and Revolutionary Wars.
It's a fascinating period.
So yeah, the miniatures are stonking, and they do show a comparison shot between sort of other 28mm figures. So if people have stuff already and they're wondering will these fit, a little bit bigger than your average bear, but there's a lot to be said for that. I like them. They're nice set of sculpts.
Okay, guys, Footsore Miniatures, Savage Frontier. Only 8 days left on that, so if you want to get stuck in, go and hop on over to it now. That wraps us up for this week. Remember, you can join us on Sunday morning for XLBS, our kind of behind-the-scenes Cult of Games members-only show, where we dive deep with the community on topics and what all of us are working on and what the community's working on. And we'd very much appreciate that you come there if you fancy spending a bit more time with us. Right, big thank you to Lloydie, Jerry, Ben. Most importantly, though, as always, guys, biggest thank you is reserved for you at home. Have a great week of gaming. We'll see you soon. Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.